My name is Rowan Vale, 32 years old. A year ago, my parents told me there wasn't a room for me in the house I grew up in, which was strange because I could have walked you to the suitcase scrape on the carpet where my bed used to sit. They didn't say it cruelly, at least not out loud. Mom twisted a dish towel until it looked like a rope and said, "Camille and the kids need the space more." Dad added, "You're tough. You'll manage. Like toughness is a currency you can barter for rent." I'd always been the one who managed. When we were little, Camille ripped cellophane off toys while I learned how to be grateful for batteries. When I won the 6th grade science fair, Dad missed the awards because Camille had a cheerleading tryout. He insisted we celebrate with her favorite milkshakes. At Christmas, Camille opened a dollhouse with lights that worked. I smiled and hugged a bear whose ear had been sewn back on, crooked. Mom called it tradition. I learned how to applaud on cue. So when the market turned and my freelance contracts thinned to a bad breeze, I did what I always did. I asked to land for a moment, just until I find the next gig. The kitchen smelled like lemon oil and coffee. It smelled like home, which made the words hit harder. "There's no more room here," Dad said, not looking up from the sports page. I stared at the hallway where Camille's son had parked a plastic fire engine in front of the guest room door. A bright red period at the end of a sentence I hadn't finished writing. I left with my laptop, a suitcase, and the feeling you get when a door closes softly. No slam, no drama, just the precision of a choice. I rented a shoebox above a barber shop, all creaks and optimism. At night, the neon scissors buzzed blue through the blinds. I worked until the letters on my screen smeared. Data dashboards for the hardware store, a churn model for a gym, seasonal trend lines for a bakery that smelled like survival. I took extra courses, learned to make ugly spreadsheets beautiful, learned that coffee counts as dinner if you tell it a story. And then, a key. Mine. A one-bedroom that didn't pretend to be more than it was. I painted the wall behind the bed a color with a name like belonging, something between smoke and sage, and set a little table by the window. I kept the first night empty on purpose. It felt like arriving inside my own chest. I wish the story stopped there, with the string lights warm and the kettle clicking off. But peace is never the final draft in my family. It's a sticky note you leave for yourself and then lose. Even in the quiet, there were hints. The day I moved in, I noticed the drawer where I meant to stash the spare key jammed half open. I told myself I'd been careless. When Mom visited once, invited briefly, she touched the framed lease like it was a photograph of another daughter. "Paper," she said, tracing the signature, "is so fragile," and smiled the way people do when they're remembering a better version of events. The first knock came a month later. They didn't text. They arrived like weather. Mom with a purse big enough to carry an apology. Dad with the look he wears when he means to be reasonable. Camille with her shoulders pitched forward, the way you hold a fight before you throw it. I didn't let them in right away. Through the peephole, Mom's mouth was a tremble she'd practiced in mirrors. The hallway smelled like someone's takeout and our past. When I opened the door, the temperature shifted. People bring their climate with them. Mine bring a cold that fogs glass. "We're so proud of you," Mom began, and the compliment tripped over its own shoelaces. "You look good, kiddo," Dad said. Camille skipped the preamble. "My kids are sleeping in a room that used to be a pantry. You have a whole place to yourself." She didn't say please. She was too tired for theater. I stepped back, just enough to keep the threshold sacred. "No." Mom blinked. "Honey, just hear us out." "We did the math," Dad said, already unrolling a pitch deck that existed only in his head. "If you let Camille stay here a few months, you could start over somewhere else," Camille finished for him, a harmony they didn't realize sounded like a threat. There it was, that family habit of speaking for me, of filling my mouth with their sentences. I let the silence gather. I wanted them to hear it. The kettle clicked behind me like punctuation. "This is my home," I said. "I worked for it. I'm not moving." Camille laughed, small and sharp. "You don't even have a family." The line landed, a cheap shot wrapped in maternal paper. I looked at Mom then, and something flickered. Guilt, or hunger disguised as concern. She reached past the jam, touched the inside molding with her fingertips as if reading Braille. "Think of the kids," she whispered. "I am," I said. "I'm thinking about what we teach them when we tell one daughter her effort is a down payment on the other's mistakes." Dad sighed. "Rowan." I'm not the pantry. Camille's gaze slid to the lock. She noticed details when it served her. Is that the same deadbolt from the old place? She asked, too casual. No, I said, but my pulse remembered the jam drawer. I kept my face still. You learn to. The scene dissolved quickly after that, their eyes growing red, voices tightening into chords we'd played for years. You're young, you'll manage. We're family. You always make it about you. I didn't raise my voice. I let the no sit, solid as furniture they couldn't move. They left in a flurry of promises that sounded like threats. At the elevator, Camille turned and said, We'll handle it, as if this were a subscription service and not my life. When the doors slid shut, I stood with my palm on the cool metal, feeling for the thud of their departure. The apartment was too quiet. It sounded like a room that knows it's about to be tested. I made tea, the ordinary kind, poured it into a mug I'd bought for nobody but me. Steam rose, a small weather system. I set the cup on the table, took out the folder with my lease and title papers, and traced my own name where the ink dried. Paper is fragile, so are people. But the right words in the right order can hold. I told myself that. I also told myself to change where I keep the spare key. When I finally slept, it was the sleep you get before a storm, the kind that presses your dreams flat and makes the air feel like a held breath. In the morning, the city looked the same. Neon scissors buzzed, buses exhaled, someone on the sidewalk laughed like they'd never been told no. My phone lit up with a new client inquiry, and for an hour I let triumph be louder than dread. Then an email arrived from building management with a subject line that felt like a hand on my shoulder, ownership transfer request. I didn't open it yet. I watched the kettle begin to hum. I didn't open the email, not yet. I let it sit like a blinking cursor at the edge of my day, while I did what I always do when my heart starts drumming. I cleaned. I wiped the counter in tiny, disciplined circles, folded the throw blanket over the couch arm, tucked a stray receipt into a drawer. The apartment obeyed me. That felt like something. What kept looping, louder than the subject line, was the way they had stood there yesterday, all three of them, packed into the hallway air until it went thin. They hadn't come to visit, not really. They'd come to rehearse a decision they'd already made and speak it into my mouth as if it had always been mine. Mom tried first, using the voice she saves for casseroles and hospital waiting rooms. Sweetheart, your sister's kids are growing out of their shoes faster than we can keep up. You remember how it is when they're little. Her hand hovered near my doorframe and then retreated, like the line between outside and inside might burn. I remember, I said, because I did. I remember being little and being told to understand. Dad's jacket creaked when he crossed his arms, that stiff, careful posture of his that says he's about to sound reasonable while shoving you across a line. Rowan, this is a short-term solution, couple months. Camille gets on her feet, we all breathe, and then you can... Start over, I said, because I knew the script. Start fresh, he corrected, as if synonyms could sweeten a demolition. Camille held herself like a runner in the set position, chin high, eyes focused not on me, but on the layout behind me, the couch, the table, where her kids might build a fort. I can pay you some rent, she said. The way she said some told the truth. I can keep things neat. We'd be quiet at night. Your youngest still naps at 4 p.m. on the floor by the fridge, because that's where the tiles are cool, I said. I didn't mean it as cruelty. It was simply what was true. And you think you'd be quiet here, with 3 kids? Camille's mouth tightened. I think my kids deserve a door that shuts. They don't have that now. I deserve that too, I said, before I could tuck it back inside. It came out small and accurate, and it landed in the space between us like a dropped spoon. For a second, something flickered across her face, a worn, human thing. So help me give it to them, she said. You don't even use half the space. Every sentence they said had a second sentence hiding inside it. Mom's "they need space" contained, "you take up too much." Dad's "you're young, you'll manage" contained, "we will not." Camille's "door that shuts" contained, "open yours." Yesterday you told me there was no room for me in that house, I said. You didn't stutter. Now you're telling me there's no room for me in mine. Mom took a breath that turned into a wipe at her eyes. It was a hard time, honey. We were overwhelmed. You know your sister's situation. She's alone. The word came wrapped in a ribbon of judgment for the man who'd left and landed on me like an invoice. I'm alone, I said, and I'm not a pantry. Dad let out one of his long, world-weary inhales. No one is calling you a pantry, Ro. He looked past me. scanning the walls for a knock he could use. We're offering a plan. Do not talk about my life like spackle, I said. You don't get to patch over me. Camille's attention had drifted. She looked at the deadbolt again, then at the junk drawer I'd left cracked too many times, memorizing the way it sticks. She's quick with patterns. She can see a shortcut before she sees a wall. We can bring over the bunk beds, she said to Mom without looking away from my lock. They'll fit against that wall. Then she looked at me. You wouldn't even know we were here. I would know, I said, with every step. We'll handle the logistics, Dad said. It doesn't have to be complicated. There was the word that made my pulse climb a rung. Logistics. My family loves a nice, bland word to cover the violent parts. We didn't lie. We misunderstood. We didn't push. You slipped. We didn't take. We handled the logistics. Mom tried a new angle. You always wanted independence, she said, as if she were gifting me my own desire. This is a chance to prove. I've been proving it, I said. Alone. For a year, while you haven't called. That's not fair, Dad muttered. What's fair is that I say no inside my own doorway and you respect it, I said. No. It is a strange thing to watch people hear you and decide they did not. They nodded the way you nod while you're already standing up to leave a movie you didn't understand, muttered a few final lines, as if they were closing arguments at a trial where the verdict had never been in question. Camille reached into her purse. For one stupid second, my chest seized, because I saw the shape of a key in my head where my fear lives, but she just took out her phone and typed fast, thumbs ruthless. We'll figure it out, she said. We always do. Mom touched my shoulder, a brief graze that felt like the past and a threat at the same time. We'll fix this, she whispered, and I heard the plural heavier than the verb. They turned as a flock and went. At the elevator, Camille turned back and gave me that little knot smile she wears when she's sure the world will bend if she kicks it long enough. You'll see, she said, like a promise. After they left, the hallway swallowed their noise. I cleaned again, because order is a kind of faith. I washed a mug that wasn't dirty and straightened a picture frame that wasn't crooked. Then I sat on the floor with my back to the door and listened to the building breathe, the pipes knocking, the neighbors laugh like coins in a jar. I pressed my palm to the wood. The skin there felt the cold and the grain and the old carpenter's math that keeps it upright. The next morning, I went down to the hardware store and bought a better deadbolt, the kind with a weight to it and a reinforced strike plate, and screws long enough to find bone in the frame. The clerk asked if I needed help installing. I said no, and he believed me. Back upstairs, I changed the lock in silence, each turn of the screwdriver a small, stubborn prayer. I moved the junk drawer's contents, rubber bands, the too many takeout menus, a dried-out pen that I can't seem to throw away, into a different drawer and put the spare key into a little ceramic bowl on a shelf I can see from the couch. A new place, a visible place. My hands shook anyway. Only then did I open my laptop. The subject line waited, patient, certain of itself. Ownership transfer request. I clicked finally, because not knowing is its own kind of bruise. The message opened in a polite font with a polite salutation and the brisk tone of people who don't mean you harm, but will harm you anyway if the form looks right. There were words like submitted, attached, notarized. My eyes skated and refused to focus. I closed the window. I opened it. I closed it again. Instead of reading, I called Brooke because I needed a voice that didn't come braided with guilt. Her line rang twice. Then her voice dropped into my kitchen like a lifeline. Hey, Vale, what's up? Something's coming, I said. I think it's already here. Read me the email, she said, slowly. I stared at the screen and felt, for the first time in a year, the exact shape of the room they had once told me didn't exist for me. Not a bedroom, not a pantry, not a place in a house, but the room inside my body where fear and fury sit at opposite ends of a table and agree to work together. I clicked again. I began to read. The words didn't make sense at first. Ownership transfer request, notarized form attached, pending verification. It read like something polite from a stranger, except the stranger was my family, and the attachment had my name on it. My signature, curved R, sharp V, the loop that never quite closes, except it wasn't mine. For a full minute, I sat still. Then the air left me in a long, shaking exhale. My chest felt tight, like someone had taken a draft of my life and scribbled over it. I clicked the PDF open again, just to be sure. The scrawl was close enough to pass at a glance. Dad's handwriting was always good at mimicry. The notary stamp looked real. I stared at the date, 2 days ago. They'd wasted no time. I called Brooke back. She answered on the second ring, her tone calm, clipped, exactly what I needed. Rowan, tell me exactly what it says. I read the key lines aloud, voice trembling. She hummed. That's forgery, straight up. You said your family's in Minnesota, right? Yes. Then good news. It's a one-party consent state. You can legally record them. Don't confront yet. Get proof, protect the paper trail, contact building management right now and freeze that transfer. Her voice steadied me, the way cold water steadies a shaking hand. Copy every file, she added. Print them, date them, send a copy to your own email, then unplug from Wi-Fi. And when you see them, record everything. Everything? I asked. Everything, she said. They'll talk themselves into a confession. People like that always do. By evening, I'd done what she said. The management agent confirmed the request had come through with a verified signature. I could hear the unease in her voice when I told her it was forged. She promised to freeze the file until I could submit proof of ownership and ID. When I hung up, I stared at the wall, at the faint outline of where sunlight used to hit during calmer mornings. I thought about the day Mom traced my lease and called paper fragile. I should have heard the warning then. Fragile things are easy to replace. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. Not home. I'd retired that word. The driveway was crowded. Mom's car, Dad's truck, and Camille's minivan, streaked with fingerprints and juice stains. The sight made my stomach knot. I tucked my phone into my coat pocket, opened the recorder app, and hit start. The tiny red circle glowed like a heartbeat. Mom opened the door before I even knocked. Rowan? Her surprise was soft, but her body blocked the entry. I need to talk, I said. Her hand fidgeted with the doorknob. Your father's in the living room. Camille's here too. Perfect, I said. She hesitated, then stepped aside. The living room smelled like lemon cleaner and disappointment. Dad sat in his recliner with the newspaper open to the finance section. Camille was at the dining table scrolling on her phone, pretending not to see me. I didn't sit. I got an email from the apartment management, I said. Someone tried to transfer my ownership to Camille, with my forged signature. Mom froze mid-breath. Dad's paper rustled, loud in the quiet. Camille didn't look up. That's ridiculous, Mom said quickly. Why would anyone? I pulled out my phone, showing them the screenshot. Because this is your handwriting, Dad, and your name's in the notary section. He stared, jaw tight. You don't know what you're talking about. Then explain it. He folded the paper, set it aside, and looked at me, really looked at me. We were trying to help. Camille's got 3 kids, Rowan. She can't raise them in that shoebox of ours. So you forged my signature, I said flatly. Mom jumped in. We didn't forge anything. We just signed for you. Signed for me? I laughed once, short and disbelieving. That's called forgery, Mom. We're family, she said, voice trembling. It's not like we were stealing from a stranger. Camille finally looked up, arms crossed. You're overreacting. It was paperwork. You'd have said yes if you'd thought about it. Really? I said. You think I'd just hand you my home? Her jaw clenched. You don't even have kids. You'll be fine. I stared at her, the nerve, the entitlement, but also the exhaustion hiding under it. You think motherhood gives you moral immunity? I asked quietly. That every mistake turns noble because you did it for them? She slammed her phone down. Don't twist this. You're selfish. You always were. Dad's voice boomed, the final gavel. Enough. We're trying to make things right for this family. No, I said. You're trying to make it right for one person. Her. Like always. Mom's tears arrived right on cue. Her specialty. We didn't want to hurt you, Rowan. You know that. I don't, I said. Not anymore. Their voices started to blur, overlapping excuses and guilt. I didn't interrupt. The recorder in my pocket caught every word. Dad muttering, We just signed for her. Mom whispering, It's for the kids. Camille snapping, You always make everything about yourself. When I finally spoke, my voice came out steady, cold. That's enough. You broke the law, and I have it all recorded. Camille's head jerked up. You what? I pulled my phone out, showed the red light. Minnesota's a one-party consent state. You just admitted everything. Their faces drained. Mom covered her mouth. Dad stood up, fists tight at his sides. You'd do this to your own family? He said, low and furious. I'd do this to anyone who tried to steal from me, I said. Camille shoved her chair back. You're pathetic, Rowan. You'd rather see your niece and nephews homeless than share. No, I said softly. I'd rather see them learn that lying has consequences. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint tick of the grandfather clock, relentless and smug. Then I turned for the door. Mom followed. Please, she said, her voice breaking. Don't make this worse. We can fix it quietly. I stopped at the threshold. You already tried to fix it quietly, Mom. That's how we got here. Her eyes were wet, but I saw calculation behind them. What will people think? That you finally raised a daughter who doesn't fold, I said, and left. Outside, the cold felt sharper. I got in my car, set my phone on the dashboard, and replayed the audio just to be sure it was real. Every word was there. We just signed for her. It's for the kids. She'll manage. By the time I got home, I'd stopped shaking. Anger does that. It organizes you. I backed up the file to 3 places, labeled each copy, and sent one to Brooke with a note. Got them on record. What next? Her reply came fast. Don't confront again. Let me handle it. They'll try something else soon. Be ready. I stared at the message. Something else. The words felt prophetic. I turned off the lights, double-checked the new deadbolt, and sat on the couch in the dark, listening to the radiator hiss. Somewhere outside, the city moved like it didn't care who owned what. But I cared, because tomorrow I knew they'd come up with a new plan. And when they did, I'd be waiting. With proof, with anger polished into armor, with every recording backed up to the cloud. They thought they could rewrite my story on paper, but the thing about paper is, it tears both ways. The first sign wasn't a sound, it was color. Pink plastic, blue bins, a soft animal print blanket folded on my couch. I froze in the doorway, my grocery bag slipping from my arm, oranges scattering across the floor. Camille's voice drifted from the kitchen. Careful, sweetie, those are fragile. I stepped forward, every muscle going cold. She was kneeling by a box labeled Toys, unpacking stuffed animals onto my counter like this was moving day. Her phone sat beside her on speaker. Mom's voice echoed faintly, offering instructions. Camille. My own voice came out too calm. What are you doing in my apartment? She looked up, completely unbothered. Setting up for the kids. You weren't answering texts, so I just came to get a head start. Texts? I pulled my phone out. Nothing. You broke in. She gave a light, mocking laugh. You make it sound dramatic. You left the spare key in your junk drawer last time we visited. Mom remembered. I couldn't speak. The drawer, the one I'd moved things from, had been jammed that first week. I'd told myself I was careless. Turns out I was right. Take your things, I said, my voice shaking now, and get out. She set a plush toy down with deliberate slowness. You can't just evict me. My kids are sleeping in the car. Mom said you'd understand once you saw everything. I don't understand breaking into my home. God, Rowan, she snapped, standing. You've got so much space. You don't even use the second closet. It's my closet. Camille rolled her eyes. You're heartless. Do you know what it's like to tell a 4-year-old he has to sleep sitting up? To watch your parents stretch retirement checks just to buy milk? But sure, guard your precious square footage. The words hit their mark. Guilt was her favorite weapon, but I'd learned how to recognize it. I'll call the police, I said. You wouldn't. I didn't answer. I pulled out my phone and dialed Brooke. Rowan? She's here, in my apartment, with boxes. Brooke's tone went immediately businesslike. Don't engage. Call the police right now. You have the recording. You're protected. Stay by the door. Camille noticed, eyes narrowing. You're really calling the cops? On your sister? Yes. For a moment, she just stared. Then the fury bloomed. The same heat I remembered from childhood when she didn't get what she wanted. You always were a snake, she hissed. You hide behind paperwork and lawyers while your family drowns. I hide behind locks, I said, which you broke. The knock came 15 minutes later. 2 officers, calm, professional, already sensing the shape of things. Ma'am, you're the tenant? One asked. Yes, I said, handing over my lease and ID. She entered without permission. Camille crossed her arms. This is insane. She's overreacting. We're family. The taller officer raised an eyebrow. Do you live here, ma'am? I will. Soon. That's not how leases work, the officer said. We're going to need you to start moving your belongings out. Camille's voice cracked, not from fear, but disbelief. You can't just kick me out. My kids. You're trespassing, the officer said evenly. You need to comply before we file a report. Camille turned on me. You did this. Yes, I said, because you did this. I gestured to the piles of boxes. You broke into my life again and tried to make it yours. Mom's voice shrieked from the speakerphone on the counter. Rowan, don't do this. Think of your niece and nephews. One officer reached over and ended the call. Ma'am, please stop contacting her until this is resolved. Camille's composure cracked. She grabbed a box, flung it toward the door, shoes spilling out, thudding against the wall. Fine, you want to be alone so badly. Enjoy it. The younger officer stepped forward, firm but calm. Ma'am, enough. She muttered curses while gathering her things, face blotchy, movements jerky. The officers stood watch until every last bin and blanket was gone. When the door finally shut behind them, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. My living room was half empty, but still smelled like someone else's perfume. The taller officer handed me a card. File a restraining order if she comes back, and change your locks again. I will. When they left, the silence felt different, heavier, violated. I picked up the stuffed rabbit that had rolled under the table and stared at it. It was soft, frayed at one ear. A child's toy. The smallest proof that none of this was abstract. It hurt real people, even if they were the wrong ones. I set the rabbit outside my door with the rest of her boxes. Then I turned back, locked the door, and double-checked every window. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept hearing Mom's words. Think of the kids. And part of me did, but another part whispered back, they'll grow up one day, and they'll learn from the story of the aunt who finally said no. When morning came, I brewed coffee and opened the blinds. Light pooled across the floor, cutting through the shadows. The apartment was mine again, but only barely. The phone buzzed onto the counter, a message from Brooke. Stay alert. They'll try another angle. They always do. I stared at the screen, feeling that now familiar pulse of dread. Because Brooke was right. Camille had lost the key, the lock, the element of surprise. But she hadn't lost the one thing that made her dangerous. Desperation. And desperate people, I knew, don't stop at doors. They go for the money next. The rumor came quietly, like smoke before a fire. It was my cousin Mia who texted first. You need to know what Camille's doing with your parents' money. I sat in the laundromat across from my building, the hum of dryers masking the sound of my pulse. I typed back, what do you mean? She hesitated before sending a string of photos. Bank statements, my mother's name, my father's account number, and thousands of dollars spent at designer boutiques, online luxury stores, hotels. Each transaction carried the same digital fingerprint. Camille S. Vale. Mia called immediately. I saw her at dinner last weekend, Rowan. She had a new handbag, $2,000 easy. Said Mom bought it for her. But when I asked Mom later, she looked confused. So I asked Dad, and he said it was a family expense. Then I saw the statements on the counter. I felt my stomach twist. They're letting her drain them. She's managing their accounts, Mia said bitterly. At least that's what she told them. Said she was handling the logistics since their eyesight's bad. That phrase, handling the logistics, hit like a trigger. My hands went cold. I need copies, I said. Can you send them all? By nightfall, my inbox was full. Screenshots, receipts, transaction IDs. I didn't want to believe it, but the pattern was too clear. Camille had turned family responsibility into a private credit line. I stared at the evidence until the screen blurred, then opened the family group chat. It was the same thread that used to overflow with birthday emojis and casserole recipes. Now, it would hold something else. I typed slowly, each word deliberate. I have proof that Camille's been using Mom and Dad's retirement savings for personal purchases. I'm attaching the bank statements. Please verify the dates yourselves before calling me a liar. I hit send. The phone vibrated almost instantly. Aunt Lydia, what on earth? Uncle Jim, those amounts. Rowan, are you sure? Mia, I can vouch for it. Saw the receipts myself. Cousin Ben, disgusting. She's robbing her own parents. Then Camille appeared, her typing dots flaring like warning lights. Camille, fake. Obviously. Can't believe you'd stoop this low. But the momentum had already shifted. Aunt Lydia, the bank doesn't fake statements, Camille. Uncle Jim, you need to explain yourself. Dad, everyone calm down. Mom, this is private family business. Private. The word stung. Privacy was always their favorite curtain, one that hid every bruise, every secret, every betrayal they didn't want the world to see. I typed one last line. You told me paper is fragile, Mom. Turns out it remembers better than people do. Then I muted the thread. The next day, Camille texted me directly. You've ruined everything. You're tearing this family apart. They're furious with me, and it's your fault. I didn't reply, but an hour later my phone rang. Mom. Her voice was tight, shaking with fury. How dare you expose your sister like that? We could have handled this quietly. You said that before, I replied. Every time you covered for her. Every time she lied. Every time she took something that wasn't hers. This isn't who you are, Rowan, she pleaded. You're better than this. I'm the same person I've always been, I said softly. You just never believed me until the paper did. She hung up. The fallout spread fast. My uncle, who managed my parents' finances, froze their remaining accounts. My aunts stopped inviting them to family dinners. Camille's posts disappeared from social media. For once, the golden child had no applause left to hide behind. But guilt is a stubborn thing. It crawled up even when you know you're right. I found myself thinking about those kids again. Her children, my niece and nephews, caught in a story they didn't write. Brooke called that evening. You did what needed to be done, she said. Don't start doubting it now. I'm not, I lied. I just keep hearing Mom's voice, the way she said, we just wanted what's best for everyone. Brooke exhaled. People like your mother confuse peace with silence. You didn't take their peace, Rowan. You just stopped giving them your silence. Her words steadied me. 2 weeks later, Thanksgiving Day, I was chopping vegetables when someone knocked on my door. 3 wraps. Too soft to be the mailman. Too sure to be a neighbor. Through the peephole, Mom, holding a pie, Dad behind her, shoulders heavy, Camille off to the side, her arms folded, eyes rehearsed into submission. I didn't open it immediately. The smell of roasted butter and sugar drifted through the crack. When I did, Mom smiled the way people smile before begging. It's Thanksgiving. We shouldn't be fighting. Let's put this behind us. Camille nodded. I'm sorry for everything, she said, her tone syrupy, rehearsed. The kids need stability. Maybe I could stay here just for a few months until things calm down. Dad added, we're family, Ro. It's time to forgive. Forgive. Another family favorite, one they used like a broom to sweep the dirt under a rug woven from guilt. I stepped into the doorway, blocking them from entering. You think an apology fixes forgery, trespassing, and theft? Mom's face fell. We made mistakes. You committed crimes, I interrupted, and now you want to stay for pie. Camille's mask slipped at first. You're really doing this? On Thanksgiving? You'd rather eat alone than help your own family? Yes, I said, because alone is honest. Her expression hardened. You'll regret this. I already did, I said, a year ago, when I believed you. Dad's voice boomed, tired and angry. You're being unreasonable, Rowan. We're trying to make peace. No, I said quietly. You're trying to make it comfortable again, for yourselves. Mom's eyes filled, the tears arriving right on cue. You're breaking our family apart. No, Mom, I said. I just stopped being the glue. I stepped back and closed the door. The pie stayed in her hands, untouched. Behind it, I heard Camille mutter, You'll see. Then their footsteps faded down the hall. Inside, the silence felt clean, not lonely, clean. I poured myself a glass of wine, turned on the radio, and let the city's hum fill the room. For the first time, I didn't flinch when I heard laughter from the street below. It didn't sound like something happening without me anymore. It just sounded like life. They'd finally lost the house that used to hold all their illusions. They just didn't know it yet. 6 months later, the snow had melted from the sidewalks in Dooth, leaving everything raw and shining. I'd gotten used to that kind of weather, where nothing hides, where the air smells like truth after a long winter of denial. Brooke and I met for coffee at the same corner cafe where I'd first called her crying about forged papers. This time, I laughed as I waved to her from the window. She set her laptop bag down, her lawyer's precision softening into a grin. You look lighter, she said. I am, I admitted, probably because I've stopped waiting for the next hit. She stirred her drink slowly. You want the update? I nodded. Your parents sold the house, she said. Too many bills, not enough retirement left. They're in a small condo now on the edge of town. I heard your uncle helped them close the deal. I pictured it. The place probably smelled like regret and old carpet. Mom trying to make peace with smaller closets. Dad pretending the quiet didn't bother him. And Camille? I asked. Brooke's smile faded. Working at a retail store. Long hours. Still catching up on debt. No support from your parents anymore. But, she hesitated. She's sober. Cut out the online shopping. A friend of mine saw her walking the kids to school. Looked tired, but present. I stared at the table for a long time. Good, I said finally. They deserve that version of her. She's tried to reach you, hasn't she? I nodded. Emails, a few letters. I didn't open them, just archived everything. Want me to tell her to stop? No, I said. Let her write. Maybe one day I'll read them, but not yet. Brooke nodded. You're handling this better than most. Handling the logistics, I murmured, and we both laughed at the irony until it didn't hurt anymore. Life had become quiet in the kind of way that stays. My apartment, once a battleground, now felt like something holy. The walls had stories, yes, but they'd finally stopped bleeding. The new locks gleamed in the afternoon light. I'd replaced the curtains, painted the door frame, and hung a small brass key bowl near the entrance. Empty by choice. No spare keys, no hidden drawers. If someone wanted entry, they'd have to knock. My freelance work had grown too. Word spread about the analyst who doesn't flinch under pressure. I took on clients from cities I'd never been to, built dashboards that told other people's stories with more honesty than my family ever managed. Every contract came with a sense of ownership that wasn't about the paycheck. It was about proof. Proof that I could build something solid, alone. Sometimes, late at night, I still thought about that Thanksgiving knock. About Mom's trembling hands, Dad's disappointment, Camille's warning. You'll see. They'd been right in a way. I did see. I saw what happens when loyalty is confused with obedience, when love is weaponized and silence becomes a lease someone else signs for you. And I saw how when you finally say no, the world doesn't end, it just changes shape. In March, a card arrived in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. Camille's looping script. I almost threw it away, but something in me said, open it. Inside was a single line written in blue ink. I'm sorry, not for losing, for what I made you lose. No signature, no plea, just that. I set it on the table beside the brass key bowl and left it there. I didn't forgive her, not fully, but for the first time, I believe she meant it. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I stepped out onto the balcony. The city was humming softly, the streetlights blinking in rhythm with passing cars, someone's dog barking 3 floors below. My reflection in the window looked older, steadier. Inside, the clock ticked, a cheap thing I'd bought after the watch incident that never quite kept perfect time, but kept trying. I liked that about it. I thought about Mom and Dad in their condo, maybe eating dinner in silence, maybe talking about weather instead of daughters. I thought about Camille tucking her kids in somewhere small but her own, and I thought about me, 32, finally free, learning that peace isn't what's left after the noise. It's what you build when you stop letting other people own your quiet. I went back inside, poured a glass of water, and set it beside the card. The moonlight caught on the rim, making it glint like a line of silver ink. Then, almost without meaning to, I whispered into the stillness, I forgive you. Just not for your sake. The room didn't answer, but it felt different, like the air had unclenched. I turned off the light, crawled into bed, and listened to the city settle. For the first time in years, I didn't brace for footsteps outside the door. Just the faint rhythm of rain starting against the window, steady, soft, certain. Paper is fragile. People are too. But I'd learned something they never did. You can rebuild. You can sign your name again. Clean this time, and it still counts. And in that quiet, I knew this wasn't revenge. It was reclamation.